Welcome back to another session. Uh, Today, I will be talking about your upbringing and the role your upbringing plays in your well being, especially the potential and the risks or the reality of depression. Now, this week, I have covered three sessions. The first was effectively a conclusion of what this week was all about and possibly what some version of the following subsequent week would be about. And I was encouraging you to just let go, the deliberate forgetfulness of the past. But included in that session was what followed. And the two sessions that followed, the first being about your family or familial matters and how they play a huge role in your life. And the second was your parents and how most of your suffering, most of your struggles, and even sometimes your depression is partly caused by family matters, parents, mother, father, siblings. In today's session, I'd like to talk about your upbringing. And I think this will make sense as I share some ideas. A good question that I've always put across to friends and loved ones when I have conversations about social matters is why is it that um, you can have one person in, say, Lincolnshire in England, and you can have another person in Barbados. And as they look towards the sky, both people at the same time can see the same sun. The same sun that shines in England is the same sun that is shining and is currently shining in Barbados. As a matter of fact, we can go back 100 years and we would say it's the same sun that was shining 100 years ago. Why is it that the outcomes of the people involved across different continents and countries vary differently? And the answer is upbringing, or to put it more mildly, environment and association. I put in that category of two words, parents and friends and goals and experiences and histories and ancestry line, etc. Doesn't matter what you label it, but it's all in there. Environment and association. Your upbringing matters. I have met people who come from different walks of life, from different parts of the continents, and the whole idea of depression is foreign to them. They don't understand what that means. And I've met other people who were primarily English or born British, born English, who are young, but they are suffering from depression. The first group have very little and they lack much, but they're grateful. And the second group have an abundance. They live in a first world country, one of the greatest in the past century, certainly the greatest country in the world currently, but yet they are lacking in inspiration. There's a lack of ingenuity, a failure or inability to dream, a constant focus on what they do not have, and an implicit position that is baked into their subconscious mind that they are depressed and that mental health is something that has come to get them. Why can you have so wide a difference between two experiences? And one of the answers is simply your association and your environment, your upbringing. If you were raised in a particular ideology, recognizing that by ideology here, I'm not referring to something negative. I'm just saying something that just is an idea that one has fought, or a family, a person, a group over time have chosen as their own. They've fallen in love with that. If you're raised with the ideology that the world doesn't owe you understanding and that life is suffering, but that you will find joy and pleasure in the journey, and that this adventure of life is not supposed to make you a promise, that you are supposed instead to give as part of the adventure a promise to things that you encounter with, that the world doesn't look to you, and you should not be expecting that the world should be looking to you to give you something. You know, the great Zig Ziglar would say, if you help enough people get what they want, then you can have anything you want. And JFK went as far as saying, you know, don't ask what your country can do for you. Instead, ask, what can I do for my country? And the whole emphasis was, you can be raised in a manner where you're always looking as though you are a receiver and never look to yourself as a giver. An environment molds us and shapes us into that expectation. Most people who suffer from depression simply count on a regular basis their unfulfilled expectations. Mostly Western people. They never sit down and count their blessings. As a matter of fact, I usually say, if people wake up in the morning and just before their feet touches the ground, if instead they were to bend their knees to the ground, they'll realize that in a short few words, some words will start to flow from their hearts, and those words will be words of gratitude, because they might start to realize how blessed they are, firstly, to be awake, secondly, to be healthy, thirdly, to have some abundance, no matter how small. And that if we start the day with gratitude, suddenly it changes the environment, the lens through which we see the eyes. We're not always focused on what we do not have and what we lack and things that haven't been done for us. We shift from an expectation of receiving, and we start to say, well, we'll start the day with praise. I'm grateful for the day. I bless the day. It's a beautiful day. And we start to see things come to us in a manner that we did not before. And one of the reasons that happens is because we shift our focus. Whatever you focus on expands. Whatever you focus on, you feel. Emotion follows the motion of your eyes. And you can see with your eye gaze or with your sight, and you can see with your mind gaze or with your mind. We call that insight. And therefore, most people who suffer from depression are not looking in the right direction. And similarly, what we also find is that your upbringing fixes your head towards a particular direction, and therefore the destination you will get will be no different, or will seldom be different to the image you've been given and it's been put in your head. On the other hand, other people have little and are grateful. They have hope. Their hope can be intoxicating. They have charisma because they think they can achieve something. And there's a sense that they have something to offer, and therefore they make an effort not to dwell in the present, not to dwell in the past, not to look to father and mother, not to look to environment even, not to even focus on familial matters and things that happen in their childhood, but simply they choose and they, without shame or apology, they decide that they want to make this life something of value, something meaningful. Some of them even go as far as saying to the universe, if they believe in such, that their destiny is supposed to end well, and they do everything that they can to make that a reality. Your upbringing matters. And so one of the things I would encourage you to think about is as you go through life and as you go through your challenges, wherever they may be and whatever shades of color they might come in, is always keep in mind that life is what we make it. Life really is what we make it. Our destiny is never set in stone. We can choose. You choose however this chapter of your life ends. You can choose whatever story people will tell about you. There are people that we know of. Nelson Mandela, suffered without justification, some would argue, but was happy to forget, to forgive and let go. And despite his upbringing that caused particular, you might say, ideological leanings at a particular time in his life, he was able to forget and forgive. You look at Gandhi, they're great men and women, Mother Teresa, who've made a huge difference. And that is simply because they chose to let go of an upbringing and to focus on a new beginning. And so my encouragement is, think about your life in the sense of a new beginning, and get a piece of paper and write and annotate and draw and describe the life you want to lead. Your upbringing plays a role in your life. For most people, it's limited. But your upbringing and the limitations he imposes is not the same as the real limits that you have. It tends to be the case, and I tend to like to use an illustration as follows. Imagine this line or in a circle to represent your real limits in life. Your upbringing creates self-imposed limitations. And the smaller circle represents your self-imposed or your upbringing limitations or your environmental limitations. But these are limitations that you've come to believe to be true. So for most people are living a life below their real limits. It's not physical, it's not even mental, it's been self-imposed. And if you can think about life and say, well, this depression represents a smaller limitation, one that is not real, but has become real by virtue of my acceptance. I can reject this depression and the limitations, this anxiety and this identity that I have, and I can believe that I can be more, that I can do more, that I can have more, that I can give more, and that I am more. And by choosing a new narrative and letting go of your upbringing and the ideas that were planted in your subconscious mind as a child, we call that a new dawn, a new day, a new dawn, and a new opportunity for something in you to be birthed. Set that goal because it's necessary, it's important, it is your duty, your responsibility, your obligation. But set this goal because it would make something of you in the pursuit of that goal and in the achievement of that goal. Now, I hope today's session has been useful.